Trojan family, what's up, man? USCJ here. It's the top of the morning. I hope everybody is getting ready to get up, get out, and make some things happen this morning. Listen, we got to talk about a couple of things that are on the table, which is Kyle Ford. Looks like he may be on his way back to the USC football Trojans. Listen, you know, there were some bittersweet moves that took place as it relates to a couple of those guys, Gary Bryant, Kyle Ford. All those guys kind of left around the same time. And the year after, of course, you guys know this year, Mario Williams. And, of course, you had Darian Singer to leave out as well. But Kyle Ford and Gary Bryant Jr. were the two guys that left after the same time. And Michael Jackson III, he left this year as well. But Kyle Ford and Gary Bryant Jr. were the two guys that kind of left. And I specifically remember there were a lot of bittersweet feelings about it. You guys know I did YouTube shorts on both of those guys, Gary Bryant and Kyle Ford. I hated to lose both of them, but I understood the move, given the fact that there was, the wide receiver room has always been stacked at USC. And we'll take a look at some information on Kyle Ford, but it was one of those things, man, where I felt like he was doing the best thing for him. That was just the way I felt. I had there were no type of ill feelings toward Kyle Ford. I mean, Kyle Ford is a big, strong, physical, fast receiver. I mean, a guy that USC can absolutely use. I mean, you guys know the receiver room right now is very, very thin. And look, I will say, why not get a guy that's familiar with your offense, a guy that you know what he can do, and he can go out there and use that big body, utilize that big body. For whatever reason, we'll take a look at his numbers. He didn't produce even as he did at USC. That could be a tribute to the quarterback situation, the offensive scheme. Who knows? But I know that Kyle Ford can play football. I know that he still has some time left, which is just one more year. He's a grad senior. And, so we'll see what happens. But Kyle Ford, man, this guy's played with a lot of guys. You got to remember Kyle Ford was here when a guy like Michael Pittman was here. You know what I mean? I mean, he Amon St. Brown. I mean, Kyle Ford has been around the block. And guys like Drake London. I mean, so Kyle Ford has been here when all of these superstar wide receivers were around. And you're talking about a guy that has major experience. So if you get anything out of Kyle Ford, you will get a guy that's experienced. Now, I'm not saying he's coming for sure. I just know that he was at USC football practice yesterday. And, from my understanding, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like, Lincoln Riley was happy to see him. Of course, he wouldn't have been allowed on the field unless Lincoln Riley he was contacted before, so Lincoln Riley got to know that a guy like him is coming. But you look at the receiver room, we're down to 7 right now. The only transfer we got to come in is the receiver out of Tufts University, and the transfer D3 guy. So Kyle Ford, he probably most likely will probably have more, I would say, I'm not even going to say more talent than the Tufts guy, but, because I don't know what the Tufts wide receiver is going to do, because he did have a phenomenal catch. The one, when I was reviewing his film, he looked like he's a strong body, knows how to position himself. But, Kyle Ford is a guy that can play, man. So you guys drop those comments. You guys let me know. What are your thoughts on a guy like Kyle Ford? We'll take a look at some of his numbers real quick. And here's going to be a look at his numbers. And you see here in 2023, he went for 22 receptions for 236 yards, which was a 10.7 average. And then you see the one TD right there, and his long was 37 yards. 2022, he was actually better. That was the year Jordan Addison, all those guys, Mario Williams, Brandon Rice, it was super stacked. Michael Jackson III, Gary Bryant Jr., you had multiple guys. Raleek Brown moved over, I guess he didn't officially move over, but it was kind of being used somewhat as a receiver. He played running back for the most part, but of course, he caught balls as well. So you have multiple guys catching balls, but you see 20 catches, 365 yards there, which was 18.3 yards average. And then you see he had the 2 TDs and the 70 receptions. I can't remember what game. I think that was a Utah game, but it was a game that Kyle Ford and Michael Jackson III, they stepped up big when other guys were out in the 2022 season. So it's not like he's a guy that's just completely lost in the sauce. This guy can move and groove. You see in 2021, Kyle Ford had 19 receptions for 252. He had more yards in 2021, than he had in 2023. So I attribute some of that from last year to just the offensive scheme, I guess, and then some of the play calling, man. I mean, you guys can hit me in the comments. You guys can tell me what you think. He went 19 for 252, which was a 13.3 average. Long was 45 yards, 2 TDs. So if anything, Kyle Ford is a big body that you want to get in there, man. You guys can drop those comments and tell me what you guys think about the possibility of Kyle Ford being back at the USC football practice. Also, the other thing I want to cover is Justice Terry. You guys know big-time commitment that USC picked up over the weekend. And crazy and oddly enough, I heard Eric Henderson talk about building relationships. The reason he think a lot of these guys really made these commitments because they understand that he's a real guy, that he's a relationship guy. He talked about that in practice. However, the same way they did with Jakeem Stewart, and I had to bring you guys receipts. Jakeem Stewart, a big-time social media site. I'm not even going sports media site. I'm not even going to say the name of the site, but they said Jakeem Stewart is leaning toward LSU. Within 10 minutes, Jakeem Stewart, stated that, look, my recruitment is open. Now, they did the same thing with Justice Terry. Just made the commitment. All these big-time commits. It's almost like they don't like it. They've been talking about this stuff every day. But he made this commitment, and just yesterday, they put this tweet out. This is from Per On 3. And you see it here, Jeremy O. Johnson. I guess he's the one that is reporting this. But he says USC 5-star D-line justice commit Justice Terry has set a return visit to Georgia, according to Jeremy Johnson. Terry flipped from the Bulldogs to the Trojans last week. And listen, I'm telling you now, the same thing that they did, the guy lives out that way. He lives in the Georgia area, Atlanta, Georgia area, I believe. So he's already out there close to Athens. So they try to make a story out of nothing. And Eric Henderson, believe it or not, he came back and he said, he put a tweet out. Once he saw this, he said, "Don't believe everything you hear." And so this is what goes on in the world of bias, the SEC land. I mean, this is how it is. This is what we dealing with. We fight against the social media site because I told you guys always that seeing is believing. If you see something, you're going to believe it. So now we got to deal with that aspect of it and just keep in communication, keep these guys pumped up, and know that these guys are still fighting on to be some USC football Trojans. Now, I got to get to another issue real quick, and this is Big Ten news, Big Ten information real quick. Let's go. Now, hopefully this doesn't cut my whole video, the whole thing off here, but this is the Big Ten recruiting rankings that just came out. This is supposed to be updated. Now, this has got to be the craziest thing that I've ever seen right here, and I'm going to tell you why. If it cuts off, that's because of this, the way it's set up here. But they got Penn State ranked number 1, Ohio State 2. I don't get it. Are you telling me that Wisconsin has a better recruiting right now than USC? On 3 has us ranked number 3 in the country. They have Wisconsin ranked number 3 in the Big Ten. Then they got Iowa 4, Oregon 6, Purdue 7, Northwestern number 8. Number 9 is Maryland. Illinois 10, Michigan 11, Washington 12, Rutgers 13, Nebraska 14, 15 is going to be Illinois, 16 is UCLA, Minnesota is 17, and then 17, I guess they're both tied, Michigan State. Are you going to sit here and tell me after we landed all those guys, we got 3 players within the top 50, and we got 2 5-star? Are you kidding me? Julian Lewis, all these guys, are you telling me we're at number 4? Man, get out of here, man. This is the type of biased stuff that I be telling you, that these guys are just completely lost in the sauce, man. So you guys can drop those comments. You guys can tell me what you think. But that's all I got for you today, man. There is practice tomorrow. Saturday, they will be suiting it up. Probably most likely it'll be another scrimmage. And there was a player that was hurt a few days ago, but he's okay. I can't name the name. From what I was told, it was just a bruise. He had an MRI, but I can't talk about who that player is. But out of respect to Lincoln Riley's wishes, I will do that. honor that. Even though I'm not credentialed connected to USC, I will honor that. But I do know how the player is. He's a big time player, but it sounded like it was just a bruise. I'm not sure if he's going to be back in the spring. But you guys drop those comments. You guys let me know what you think. Like, share, subscribe. It's USCJ32 on Instagram, USCJ32 on Twitter. Until later on, everybody stay blessed. Fight on, fight on, fight on.